being the most connected generation in the history of mankind has its upsides, but it also comes with real invisible problems. And we've grown up aspiring to be our idols. And that's dangerous. I mean, aspiring to achieve great things is fine, but aspiring to be our idols is dangerous. It's dangerous to want to be someone you're not. It's also not possible, but it's dangerous. And social media has glamorized the lives of a few, and we get to see their nice cars and their holidays and their wonderful lifestyle, and we want that. But we don't see the years and years of hustle, the pain, the sacrifice, the natural talent they had, the innate passion for their craft, the incredible details Steve Jobs saw the world in, or the unbelievable hardship that Richard Branson went through to get there. We don't see that. We just see the destination, and we want that. But most of us don't have and aren't willing to give what it takes to fulfill that journey, because it's not our journey, it's theirs. You're not passionate about typography or art or design, but you want to be Steve Jobs. You're not Steve Jobs, you're you. We are the generation that has confused admiration with aspiration, and we'll never find our own happiness until we accept that we can't have anyone else's life but our own. And if we realize this and focus on our own, then our life will be more than enough. You know, young men want to be Mark Zuckerberg because they admire him. But the crazy irony is we admire him because his life was unlike others. He didn't try to be like others. So if you want to be Mark Zuckerberg, it's time to stop trying to be Mark Zuckerberg, because you'll never achieve your personal greatness. Our idols did not follow in the footsteps of their heroes. There was no Bill Gates for Bill Gates to emulate. He had to carve out his own path to find his own greatness. Each of our idols have uniqueness as their power. They had the conviction to disagree, the confidence to persevere, and the braveness to go against the status quo instead of embracing it. You know, we celebrate their individuality and their lack of conformity, and the audacity of their strong beliefs that black was equal to white, or their vision for a pocket computer, or a more connected world, or a driverless car, or a personal spaceship that could go to Mars. These ideas could only come from people who did not follow in the footsteps of others. So my advice to my generation is, don't aspire to be your hero. Stop trying to mimic what you see them doing. Strive to be yourself. Visionaries are not to be imitated, they are to be admired. Trying to be someone else is a surefire way of becoming nobody at all. The only great person you can become is the greatest version of yourself, because all the other great people are already taken. And the funny thing is, once you become the greatest version of yourself, people will see your life and they'll make the mistake of trying to be you too.
We want to show all the hoopla. I hate what's going on Instagram right now. Everybody living their fake life, putting up pictures of like baby giraffes and like hot chicks and $50,000 cash on a bed and a boat, and painting a lifestyle that is not realistic. And I want to have this conversation because I think that I have a big enough voice to start the conversation about, look, there is a level of talent here, and what we need to all be doing is figuring out what we're best at and going all in on that.
People who were great at their craft became great, and if you read their stories, you'll learn that obviously it's not like one of the people who talks about is Leonardo da Vinci. It's not like Leonardo da Vinci woke up one day and was painting incredible paintings. Like, there was this long process of apprenticeship and this long period of suffering. Even the fact that da Vinci was like an illegitimate child, so he didn't have all the rights and privileges of having like some of the more noble professions, so he had to go into art, and because he had to go into art and he wasn't allowed to like live in his father's house, he had to study and become an apprentice, and he went through this whole process. And the idea of mastery, I think, a lot is lost on our generation. The idea of becoming really, really good at something. And you can tell that because of the social media use that we have, and because of the way that our attention, the arc of our attention now, and how short that arc is. We're losing our ability to focus deeply on something even when it's boring. Which is another thing. There's another book by Cal Newport called Deep Focus. It's called Deep Work, and it just talks, again, kind of links in with mastery, talking about the ability to go really deep on a skill that you're trying to build, or go deep on a path you're trying to take in your life. We don't accept boredom anymore.
No, we don't.
We don't.
And we've in our minds, we've somehow confused passionate with entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So like that means if I'm so passionate about this thing, like, but that means I need to be entertained by it all the time. No, it takes a lot of work to get good at something. And that means struggle, that means hardship, and that means a lot of boredom.
Yeah.
And with all these fucking distractions, I mean, look, I have 2 phones, I've got a laptop, you've got the phones, like, there's all these distractions coming at us that are just begging for our attention, that it's so easy to give up at every moment, and therefore we feel like, oh, we're let down, we're not making.
It's hard to go deep. It's hard to go deep.
It's really hard to go deep and to focus on something. And then you place that within the context of like, everything that I was talking about.
Most of things that happen in life you have no control over. You don't control your parents, where you're born, when you were born, what era, really what schools you go to, anything like that. And then beyond that, just things happen to you. And so the way I look at it, maybe 95, 96% of what happens in life, you have no control over. It's just circumstances coming at you. But you have a little margin of control. And power is the ability to increase that tiny little margin to 4, 5, 6%. And how do you increase that margin of control over circumstances, over people? Well, the gist of it is controlling yourself. Self-mastery. Power begins from within. If you're aware of who you are, if you're aware of what you're good at, what you're not good at, if you're able to see how emotions kind of govern your life, if you can learn what your weaknesses are and how to control them, you can't ever get complete control, but awareness is almost enough. Slowly through this process of knowing who you are and understanding other people and how they operate so you don't make stupid mistakes in life, you can increase that little tiny margin more and more and more, and you will be a person of power.
The capacity to strengthen and increase your hunger is the one common denominator amongst the most successful people. Richard Branson's a good friend of mine, and Peter Guber, Steve Wynn, all these guys, they've never lost their hunger. Most people are hungry to achieve a certain amount, make a certain amount of money, and then they get comfortable and relax, or to get a certain level of fitness, and then they relax. But, Richard is as driven today as when he was 16 years old starting. I mean, he's like on fire, and he's 65 years old. Warren Buffett is 85 years old. He's as driven today as when, he began the journey, right? And so people that have that hunger, I believe intelligence, I love people that are wickedly smart. Yeah. And I work to be wickedly smart by educating and training myself and so forth and training my brain. But there's a lot of intelligent people who can't fight their way out of a paper bag, right? Absolutely. Hunger is the ultimate driver, because if you're hungry, you can get the strategy, you can get the answer. If you can't model it, you can find it. So hunger.
Understand yourself. That's step one. If you don't understand yourself, if you don't really embody that Da Vinci quote about the greatest form of mastery is mastery over oneself, if you don't embody that, you're in real trouble. And the reason is it's going to stop you from seeing opportunities to learn.
Well, I think passion is dangerous, right? So throughout philosophy, especially in Stoic philosophy, they warn against the passions, like lust, greed, anger, fear. Historically, passion has meant extreme emotions.
Yes.
And so I tend to gravitate towards that definition. But I think purpose is better than passion. Right? Because passion is...
It's like a mission.
Yeah, passion is like, I like this, it feels good, I want to do this. Uh-huh. Purpose is, here's what I'm trying to accomplish, here's why it's important, and I'm not going to stop until it's done. Mm-hmm. Like, who would you rather have work for you? The guy that just really loves writing, or the person who's like trying to write for a reason, Yeah. And so that passion can be blinding, and it can get you... It's not enough just to love something, or else everyone would do what they love. You also have to be good at it, and you also have to know how to make smart decisions and how to plan.
I mean, a lot of people, I think, don't know what their purpose is.
Sure.
They don't know how to discover it. They don't even know what they're passionate about. So how do you find a purpose, period? How do you even go about saying, oh, this is my purpose at this point in my life?
Yeah, well, I think one of the reasons that people like to say find your passion is that it sounds really smart, and you don't, no one's like, okay, then what, right? It's just like, it's like, do what you love, you know, okay, then how? You know, so when I'm saying purpose, I think it's about defining your goals, defining what the life you're trying to build is, and having a real model for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And for me, I've tried to be very clear about what I'm trying to accomplish to myself, so that I'm not getting distracted by all these. Like, I like to do lots of things.
Me too.
But you got to pick one to really get good at it, you know? And it's like, if you're doing this thing because it means something to you and you know exactly what success looks like for you, it's nice because then you're not as distracted by the fact that so-and-so is posting photos of them surrounded by $100 bills on Instagram or on a yacht in Ibiza or whatever. You know, you want to make sure that you're not comparing yourself to other people. You want to compare yourself against the progress you've made for whatever your purpose is.
Most people
after.
never do that. That's the best way to compare yourself, as to how far you've come and what you've created, as opposed to what everyone else has created around you.
Well, you probably learned that in sports, right? Where it's like, it's not about what other players are doing. It's about whatever you're capable
from the previous
of.
game or the previous week or what we've done. Yeah.
Right.
Getting closer to our goal or to our vision. But everyone has their demons in battles. Of course. It doesn't matter if they're like the richest person or the most successful or the most good looking or the most athletic. There's some battle I feel like we're always facing.
Yeah.
It's hard to just be like, I've got it all figured out in all areas of my life. I don't know. Have you met anyone who's just like, everything's figured out? Like,
well, I don't
have any challenges.
I would say the people who you feel like have it most figured out are probably struggling the deepest.
The most.
Because you don't know what each person is wrestling with inside. You don't know if that beautiful celebrity is wrestling with an eating disorder. You don't know if that guy
or whatever.
Yeah, you don't know if that guy who seems like he has a happy family is miserable and cheats on his wife. You know, you don't know if that person who sold millions of albums feels like a failure because their parents never told them they love them. You know, you don't know what people are struggling with, and it's like you can't compare yourself to them because you don't know what it cost them. Do you know what I mean? You don't know what's inside.
Yeah.
I think Instagram ruined most people's social perception of themselves and each other. It's really easy to see others who are doing well and feel this core of anxiety in the pit of your stomach, this core of inadequacy because others seem to be always doing better than you, driving a nicer car, wearing better clothes, have a hotter girlfriend or boyfriend, have more fun at work. They're not even working. What are they doing? I look at some of these people on Instagram, I think, man, how do you live? Because I don't ever see you doing anything that's remotely looking like work. The reality is, I mean, if you look around across campus, you know, I have fun here on a daily basis, but I'm working. Like, I'm at the computer, I'm working. And I think that it's easy to get jealous of people who seem to be doing really well and think, why not me? You know, what's wrong with me? Once you stop thinking like that, and once you kind of detach the negative emotions from people who are successful and succeeding, it makes room for you to feel better about yourself. And it doesn't put a lot of pressure on you, or puts less pressure on you to be perfect. When people who succeed and successful people inspire you, it makes you start to think about how you can do the things they're doing, rather than think about why you're not able to do them, right? So it's less about competition and more about, you know, creativity in terms of how you're gonna solve your problem. Jealousy never helped anybody, man. And I'm not saying the whole like, oh, you know, if you don't have haters, you ain't doing well. I'm just talking from a basic human level. Nelson Mandela supposedly said this. He said, you know, jealousy or hatred is like drinking poison and expecting it to kill your enemies, right? That's the way you have to think about that feeling of jealousy when other people are doing well. Don't do it. Look at it, become inspired by it, learn to live your own life better.
We humans tend to fixate on what we can see with our eyes. It is the most animal part of our nature. When we look at the changes and transformations in other people's lives, we see the good luck that someone had. We see the book or the project that brings the money and the attention In other words, we see the visible signs of opportunity and success. What really allows for such dramatic changes are the things that occur on the inside of a person and are completely invisible. The slow accumulation of knowledge and skills, the incremental improvements in work habits and the ability to withstand criticism. Any change in people's fortune is merely the visible manifestation of all of that deep preparation over time. By essentially ignoring this internal invisible aspect, we fail to change anything fundamental within ourselves. And so in a few years' time, we reach our limits yet again, we grow frustrated, we crave change, we grab at something quick and superficial, and we remain prisoners forever of these recurring patterns in our lives. The answer, the key to the ability to transform ourselves is actually insanely simple: to reverse this perspective. Stop fixating on what other people are saying and doing, on the money, the connections, the outward appearance of things. Instead, look inward. Focus on the smaller, internal changes that lay the groundwork for a much larger change in fortune. It is the difference between grasping at an illusion and immersing yourself in reality. And reality is what will liberate and transform you.
This too shall pass. Whatever you're feeling, whether you're feeling great or whether you're feeling terribly, it's going to pass. But if truly you could never feel good about yourself ever again, why would you want to go on? Even serving other people, you do it in part because of how beautiful it feels. So helping people understand that that will pass, that there will be something beautiful again waiting for them, but that what you build your self-esteem around, what that ego is tied to, is absolutely critical, because if you tie it to being right, if you tie it to being good, if you tie it to being pious, if you tie it to anything that is fragile or tenuous, it can go away, and then your ego is damaged, and then the psychological immune system kicks in, and then you start making really weird choices. So build your ego around something positive. Build your ego around something that is truly anti-fragile. Something that's anti-fragile is not something that's resilient. Resilient things are still defined by their breaking point. Their breaking point just happens to be far away. Anti-fragile is the more it's attacked, the stronger it gets.
Right? Because inside of your comfort zone, you won't learn much about yourself. Right? If you're just doing some stuff, that just random stuff that is not challenging you, you won't really get those lessons. To get a good lesson in life, it actually takes a little bit of pain, a little bit of suffering, a little bit of failure, and a little bit of getting outside of that comfort zone. And actually, the more you exit the comfort zone in that healthy way, you don't want to go too far out to go to that red alert. You want to still be in that yellow alert, as you said. And once you exit a little bit, you will just exit enough to be able to learn, to be able to realize lessons that are helpful for you. And that's the third part that is important to understand, is that you can only learn about yourself through challenges, through exiting the comfort zone. You won't learn much through theory. You will only learn through action. Through theory, I mean, you can gather information, you can gather ideas how to take action better, but it's not going to replace action itself. And you know this. I mean, everybody who's been through college, I mean, I got a master's in computing, all that theory that I knew and that I learned and all that stuff, now I can Google in 5 minutes. Right? In 5 minutes, I can Google my entire college. What does that give me? Pretty much nothing. But all the practical stuff that I learned, the theory that I've applied, the ideas that I've kind of went through my own life that I've applied, and I put in my own work in there, my own effort, I remember every single detail of that. And that's what it's coming down to. It's about you taking ideas, applying them as a little scientist, doing a little bit of experiment, realizing that feedback, making sure that you are moving forward, that you are aware, that you have raised that level of awareness, so you're not that person who's just living in a daze, so doesn't know what's going on. And once you get there, that's where the magic happens. So you just have to make micro adjustments. at the end, it's all about the micro adjustments, right? As you're going toward the path of success, and you guys know that famous picture of success and that people are thinking it's a straight line, but then it's like going all over the place. Well, that is a little bit true, right? And every time you fall off track a little bit, there's a micro adjustment that you make. And that micro adjustment, if it's based on true data that you've gathered through taking action, then it's gonna be a good adjustment. If it's just a random adjustment, you can just go even further off the path. And that's really what you're all trying to figure out, is how do I gather the right data, the data that is actually useful for me. And once you gather that data, that's where success starts to happen.
You want to think of your journey like, it's almost like you see that light at the end of the tunnel, but you also want to think of it like a narrow road. You want to think of success as a narrow road. So you are walking that line of success, but you have a more focused set of behaviors than most people, and you are constantly course correcting. So you're learning from where you fucked up, and you're taking the lesson and then course correcting again and again and again and again. And you know who I actually kind of learned it from? It was interesting. I learned it from watching Kobe Bryant win a championship against Boston 2 years ago. Because every game that the Lakers would play, whenever they would lose, they would always talk about the little lessons that they got from the loss and about how they had the ultimate vision of the championship and how they needed it to come together for the championship.
And it doesn't matter where you're at right now, what you've done in the past, or where you think you're going. You can always create a better tomorrow if you start taking action today. So I want you to think about, what is the vision? Where do you want to be in 10 years? And what's the action step you can take right now? Again, it doesn't matter how broke or how broken you are. You can always create a better future if you start with a positive mindset right now.